Gunner wreck.
Whoop-dee-doo.
Yakka wreck.
Whoop-dee-doo.
Slugger wreck.
Whoop-dee-doo.
Wooden wreck.
Whoop-dee-doo.
The wild image of young Thug rocking a dress on his Jeffrey cover was once seen as fearless genius. But in 2025, it feels like a haunting reminder of a career spiraling out of control.
What up, dope? Almond, cutthroat, cutting.
From juggling jail time to wrestling with industry juggernauts, Thugger is stuck in a dangerous balancing act that even Gunner, who gloated about being unstoppable, can't fix for him.
If we go to prison for the rest of our life, whoop-dee-doo.
Fans are whispering that instead of spitting bars, he might as well pick up a mandolin, because at this point, rap might not keep his bankroll alive. And here's where it gets twisted. Young Thug just dropped a new album.
What's next for Young Thug? Who should we look forward to you working with, do music, any mixtapes when it come out? What can we expect in 2011?
Wayne, Young Money. I'm working with them.
You are right now?
No.
Are you going to? You're going to.
Yeah, Young Money. I'm coming.
But the talk of the streets is that it might be one of the worst hip-hop disasters in recent memory. Critics are calling it a flop. Fans are divided. And the chaos is making people question if Thug has lost the very magic that made him a legend. In fact, the album has people saying it feels like he took a page straight out of his mentor Lil Wayne AS' darkest era, showing the world how painfully low a project can sink in 2025. But on paper, Young Thug should have been untouchable. He's inspired your favorite rapper's favorite rapper, mentored stars who went on to dominate the charts, and went to war with the entire state of Georgia for his freedom. He faced decades behind bars, with his life and legacy on the line, and still, he beat the odds. He lived to tell the tale, a walking miracle of rap survival.
Elton John, like, he a fan. The first thing he ever said when I met him was, when WAP get out.
When what? When oh, good.
Yeah. When that said WAP.
Damn.
He said Guap.
No, he didn't, man. Stop playing.
Signing artists like Gunna should have secured his empire forever, with platinum album after platinum album keeping the YSL name alive. And yet, instead of basking in glory, everything around Young Thug seems to be falling apart. The blessings have turned into burdens, and his once unshakable career now looks like it's hanging by a thread, leaving fans stunned and asking how one of the most influential rappers alive managed to sabotage his own throne. Young Thug wasn't just blessed with a loyal fan base. He had something far more powerful by his side. Mariah the Scientist, the stunning girlfriend who stood tall through every courtroom appearance and prison headline. While the world doubted him, she stayed solid, never leaving his corner. And when the miracle finally came and he regained his freedom, it looked like the perfect comeback story. So why does 2025 feel like the exact opposite? A nightmare with Thug holding what many are calling the worst album of the year.
Oh, it's Carter 6.
Yeah.
Nah, it's Carter also?
Yeah.
You and Lil Wayne is coming out, or explain that to me.
Nah, I just feel like I'm that big.
Wow.
Cause he feel like after the Carter's 5, he ain't gonna make no more music. Cause he feel like can't nobody make no music like that. Carter 6.
How did everything collapse when the stars seemed perfectly aligned for him to dominate the game? See, if there's one thing Thugger has always been known for, it's thriving when the odds are stacked against him. From day one, he was laughed at as a Lil Wayne knockoff, a carbon copy who'd never be original. Critics mocked him as nothing more than a Diet Wayne. But instead of backing down, Thug flipped the script. He trolled Wayne, he leaned into the comparisons, and somehow played the game even better than the man he was accused of imitating. That boldness caught the attention of one man who could make or break careers. Birdman.
The cooler like Akon. All the bums. Carter 6 coming. The Barter 6 coming, yeah. The Barter 6 bumming. The Barter 6 bumming, yeah.
Birdman, the ruthless mogul of Cash Money. Records the same man who held half the profits of Lil Wayne's Young Money empire, the label that gave us Drake, Nicki Minaj, and Tyga. Decided he saw something in Thug that reminded him of Wayne's early days. Suddenly, Young Thug was no longer an outsider. He became Birdman's protege, chosen to carry the next wave of chaos and creativity. Their alliance birthed the legendary Rich Gang Collective, dropping the timeless anthem Lifestyle in 2014, a record that still echoes through clubs and car speakers over a decade later.
Can't name the mixtape Carter 6 cause he trying to sue. It's just like some big old blood, so I'm going Barter 6. I don't know. Wait.
Back then, Thug openly declared Wayne his favorite rapper of all time, even as he carved his own lane right under Wayne's shadow. It was a dangerous mix of admiration and rivalry, loyalty and betrayal, the kind of dynamic that built Thug's mythology.
I want y'all to understand that there's only one mother Carter. You need. I want y'all to do me a favor. If y'all ever have Rich Gang or whoever it is in this month, y'all let them know I said fuck. Also, before I go any further, I want y'all to do me a favor and stop listening to songs that post naked on their mother album.
But also planted the seeds for the messy legacy we are watching unravel in 2025. Young Thug wasn't shy about where his loyalty stood. He once boldly declared that he'd rather work with Lil Wayne than Michael Jackson. That's how deep the admiration ran. Sadly, fate never gave us that dream collaboration. And instead of standing beside his idol in the studio, Thug found himself caught in a twisted family feud.
See, you used to be a Crip, now you're a Blood. So I don't want no smoke with you. You got Bloods and Crips on your team. And you was a male stripper once before, so I don't want to fight you. I don't want no germs from you. And you know I'm in LA more than Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he the governor.
Sure, he got to work with legends like Elton John, but while Elton was busy worrying about Gucci Mane's prison release, Thug's eyes were laser-focused on one thing: when he could finally make music with Wayne, the man who made him want to rap in the first place. At this point, the story took on a soap opera feel. Thug had already linked up with Wayne's father figure, Birdman, who had just welcomed him under his wing. That made young Thug, in a bizarre way, Birdman's grandson, and if Birdman was Wayne's dad, that turned Thug into Wayne's little brother or rival heir, depending on how you looked at it.
It's time for you to come out here and get this money, nephew. Well, my nigga, you done blessed. You done did everything you could do, bro. It's an eye-opener, bro. You know what I'm saying? While you're on that strictly business, man.
The energy was spicy and messy, setting the stage for one of hip-hop's most toxic family dramas. But then the chaos really began. Wayne was gearing up to drop the long-awaited Carter V, an album fans had been begging for since the early 2010s. But in December 2014, Wayne shocked the world with a single tweet. He admitted his project was being held hostage. Cash Money Records, Birdman's empire, was refusing to release it, refusing to pay him properly, and forcing him to sue his own label for over $50 million. That lawsuit exposed cracks in the empire and made Wayne look like a prisoner inside the house he built. Now imagine the pressure on young Thug. The man giving him his biggest opportunity was the same man suffocating his idol's career. He adored Wayne, admitted he wouldn't even be an artist without him, yet Birdman was the one holding the keys to his future. And how did Thug handle this impossible crossroads? By turning the flames into an inferno. He doubled down on his Wayne obsession and announced that his first major debut album would be titled The Carter 6. It wasn't just homage, it was provocation, a move bold enough to shake the culture and risky enough to spark war. So why the Carter 6? Young Thug's explanation at first sounded respectful. He claimed Lil Wayne had always said the Carter 5 would be his last in the series, so Thug was simply picking up the torch where his idol left off. In his mind, it was about legacy. Wayne would end at 5, and Thug would carry the name into 6. But as lawsuits and betrayal started swirling, that story shifted fast.
You don't give a shout out to like Birdman or...
I shouted out Birdman. I shouted out a lot of people. I shouted out Lil Wayne before. Still, damn. I put a video the other day and shouted him out. I guess he seen that and then he just finally just put it in his head like, okay, this little boy don't hate me. He probably think I hate him. I'm like, bro, I wouldn't want to die with you, nigga. I don't do music with this fool. And Bird didn't make no better. And damn, that nigga Bird, man.
I can't believe you say that, man.
What? Hurt?
Yeah.
And I almost signed, but to pay. I'm like, bro.
When Wayne went public with his lawsuit against Birdman, accusing him of strangling his career and locking up the Carter V, Thug suddenly flipped his reasoning. He said Wayne was taking too long, so he was just going to go ahead and drop the Carter 6 first. That wasn't homage anymore. That was provocation. Fans weren't feeling it, and hip-hop purists saw it as outright disrespect. Remember? This was years before clout-chasing trolls like Tekashi 62699 or clumsy stunts from rappers like Lil Pump or Bunk Gang. Back in 2015, this type of move was unheard of, and Young Thug was pioneering the art of trolling on a global scale. He was literally poking at his idol every single day, bragging that he was signed to Wayne's daddy, Birdman, while Wayne himself was battling that very same man for freedom and money. The audacity was jaw-dropping. Wayne wasn't laughing, though. He threatened to sue Thug directly, making it crystal clear. "Don't you dare hijack the title of the album series that defined my entire career." But instead of backing down, Thug went even further. He changed the name to Barter 6 and posed completely naked on the cover, an unfiltered middle finger to Wayne, to tradition, and to anyone who thought he'd play nice. It was scandal, it was trolling, it was chaos, and it cemented Young Thug as the enfant terrible of hip-hop. Wayne had spent years building the Carter brand into legendary status, only to watch his so-called fan-turned-little brother twisted into a taunt.
When he did his 2 album deal with me, Cash called me one day like, "Hey, what the hell going on with Gunna? Who's speaking for him?" I'm like, "Wow." He tried to get signed right here with Weeknd signed it. He demanded he want, 20 million. So I already done told him, like, whatever you want, just say it. I'm gonna give you the money, whatever you want. I know you can't go nowhere in this world and get no $20 million check from no label. You're not doing numbers like that. The number 1 album you just had right now, I paid for you to have a number 1 album. You didn't, you know what I'm saying, honestly earn a number 1 album over the weekend, my boy. I paid for that. I never said that to him. I never told him that. Cause we just got the plug on that. Like, you never earned a number 1 album. I spent $50 extra grand buying my stream, $50,000 buying streams for you. And Cash know the same plug, so Cash could have did the same thing. But Cash like let it go. Cash just like spat down, like, man, let it on the way. I ain't stunning. Spat down.
If that wasn't a declaration of war, nothing was. And to make things even uglier, Young Thug didn't just try to drop the Carter 6. He tried to release it under the exact same label. Lil Wayne was suing for stealing millions from him. Imagine the disrespect. Wayne was fighting Cash Money in court, claiming they robbed him blind, and here comes Thug signing under Birdman's wing, using Wayne's sacred album title and striking a naked pose on the cover like it was performance art. It wasn't just copying. It felt like trolling Wayne's entire legacy. Birdman's intentions became clearer, too. In his eyes, Thug wasn't just another artist. He was the replacement. The idea was to sign someone who carried the same hunger, talent, and raw star potential Wayne had as a teenager. Someone who looked and sounded enough like Wayne to keep the Cash Money formula alive. To Birdman, Wayne had become a liability, so why not build another Wayne from scratch? And Thug, with his wild style and reckless ambition, fit the bill perfectly. History was repeating itself in plain sight. Back in the day, Lil Wayne had been the youngest member of the Hot Boys alongside Juvenile, BG, and Turk. Juvenile had the hottest album on Cash Money, 400 Degrees, before walking away after bitter fights over money. When Juvie left, Wayne took the title and dropped 500 Degrees, claiming the throne and cementing himself as the new face of the label. Now here came Thug, pulling the same stunt. Wayne's Carter fee was trapped in legal limbo, so Thug announced Barter 6. It was the same playbook, but this time the roles were reversed. Thug was snatching Wayne's crown while he was still alive to watch it. The difference? The world wasn't with Thug. The industry and fans alike were riding with Wayne through his war with Cash Money.
And even if Uzi moves, we still have to deal with Morgan Wallen, because he's doing 100,000 every week no matter what.
Who?
Morgan Wallen, the country guy.
Yeah, what the is this doing? Why the didn't we think to put him on the album? Like, what the
I mean,
you think we're going to beat the boy?
I'm not going to sleep until we beat him. So whatever happens, whatever happens. So it's like, okay.
Beat the boy, then tell the boy you can't beat me, join me. Get on this song, young boy. Yeah, let's try to beat that. You still got that plug, right? That we did with none of them. You still got that plug?
Yeah, I mean, Yeah.
There you All right, my boy.
Yeah. All right, I love you. Call me out.
The only way Thug could silence the hate was by doing the unthinkable, delivering a project so good that people had no choice but to respect it.
To be signed to Gucci. P used to be signed to Gucci Man. When Gucci Man found out that shit, he dropped it. Because P used to try to rap.
Well, they still friends, so how's that?
Yeah. Ended up going to jail. I got him turned soft.
And against all odds, that's exactly what happened. Barter 6 didn't just survive the backlash. It turned into a cult classic, proving that Thug wasn't just trolling. He had the talent to back it up, even if it meant declaring war on his own idol to prove it. Here's the wild truth. As much as fans worship the Carter V, there's a real argument that Barter 6 ended up being more influential. In 2025, many would even say it has better replay value than Wayne's long-awaited project. That right there was young Thug's hidden superpower. He didn't need to be the most likable because his music cut so deep into the culture that people couldn't stop playing it even when they hated him personally. But don't get it twisted. Thug's rise wasn't smooth. He was tangled up in beefs with just about everyone. Kevin Gates, The Game, Rich Homie Quan, and of course Wayne himself. The internet was flooded with sneak dices, late-night lives, and pillow talk that would soon become a crucial part of his story. Fans were glued to every messy post, every shady line, waiting to see who Thug would take aim at next. And then there was his persona, another storm all on its own. He wore dresses on album covers, he called his homies hubby in public, and he blurred every line between trolling and sincerity. For some, it was genius. For others, it was pure disrespect. But either way, it kept him in the headlines, whether people loved it or hated it.
Whoop-de-doo. Whoop-de-doo. When you got out of jail, you didn't help Slime at all. Savage sent money to Thug. Overly. Wham sent money to Thug. Overly. Luda sent money to Thug. Overly. Drake sent money to Thug. Overly. How the hell the prosecutor gonna spell prosecution wrong? What are you talking about? Beat it.
Nobody could ignore young Thug. Yet what silenced every critic, every doubter, every internet troll was the music. No matter how wild his image or how messy his drama, Thug would always drop records that shifted the sound of Atlanta and the entire trap scene. His flow, his delivery, his willingness to stretch his voice like an instrument, nobody had heard anything like it before. That was the paradox of Thugger. The scandals might have drawn you in, but the music kept you hooked. That's why, even through the madness, he remained one of the most captivating forces hip-hop had ever seen. That was the secret ingredient. His music was magnetic, pulling fans in no matter the chaos. But the story was about to take a sinister twist, one that blurred the line between industry beef and real-life violence. The tension between Wayne and Thug wasn't just lyrical anymore. It exploded during their tours in 2015, in one of the eeriest coincidences hip-hop had ever seen. The day Barter 6 officially dropped, young Thug found himself on stage in Lil Wayne's hometown of Hollygrove, New Orleans. Meanwhile, Wayne was performing in Thug's hometown of Atlanta, Georgia. It was almost like fate had staged a symbolic swap. But instead of uniting the culture, the night spiraled into pure chaos. Thug got booed off stage in New Orleans, a humiliating moment in front of Wayne's people. Yet Wayne's night was far worse. Reports say Wayne got into a heated confrontation with one of Thug's affiliates, none other than Pee Wee Roscoe. What happened next would shake the entire rap world. Wayne's tour bus was riddled with bullets, allegedly fired by Pee Wee Roscoe himself. By the time the smoke cleared, Roscoe was arrested and would end up spending nearly a decade behind bars for the shooting. But here's where things got suspicious, and where the conspiracy really starts. While locked up, Pee Wee Roscoe reportedly called the same cell phone over 20 times, a phone directly linked to young Thug. If that wasn't enough, investigators uncovered a recorded call between Roscoe and Birdman, where Birdman was heard chillingly saying, "This was all strictly business." Imagine that, the man Wayne was suing for $50 million, the same man who had adopted Thug as his new protege, casually speaking with the shooter after the crime. Years later, the plot thickened. In 2023, Interrogation footage leaked of police questioning young Thug back in 2015 about his ties to Roscoe and the bus shooting. For years, that tape stayed hidden, but now in 2025, it is being used against Thug in court as part of the sprawling case that could end his career forever. Police pressed him. What was his connection to Pee Wee Roscoe? And did he know anything about the attempt on Wayne's life? It wasn't just rap beef anymore. This was evidence, conspiracies, and courtroom battles. And the fact that these tapes resurfaced years later showed just how deep the authorities were digging to finally bring young Thug down. When police grilled young Thug about Pee Wee Roscoe, he tried to downplay the connection, even insisting Roscoe was cool with Wayne. Thug told investigators Roscoe had actually sold Wayne weed before, painting him less like a shooter and more like a hustler who had history with Wayne himself. But that wasn't the headline here. What shook fans years later was the fact that in this interrogation room, Thug revealed more raw detail about the Wayne Birdman beef than he ever admitted in an interview, a song, or even casual conversation. Thug explained to the cops that the feud between Birdman and Wayne wasn't as simple as father versus son. It was way messier. Birdman, who was actively trying to sign Thug at the time, told him Wayne's real anger came from Birdman blocking the release of the Carter V. And Birdman's reasoning, he claimed Wayne simply didn't have the hits anymore. That cut deep. Birdman told Thug straight up that Wayne's singles weren't sticking, that he couldn't match the cultural explosion of the Carter 3 or even the solid run of the Carter 4, and the numbers seemed to back it up. Wayne had thrown out track after track, even teaming up with Drake twice, but the songs fizzled. None of them turned into a massive anthem. To Birdman, the Carter 5 looked like a money pit, a big budget project with no return, a guaranteed loss for cash money. That was his excuse for keeping the album locked away, suffocating Wayne's career while dangling the spotlight in front of young Thug. But here's the shocking twist. Thug told police that he still loved Wayne too much to just watch his idol's career crumble. So in a wild act of loyalty, he offered Wayne his own monster hit, Lifestyle. That's right. Thug was ready to hand over a generation-defining anthem, one of the biggest records of his career, just so Wayne could use it as the comeback single for the Carter V. Think about how insane that is. If Wayne had accepted, it would have completely changed hip-hop history. Picture Wayne, not Thug, performing Lifestyle, the very song that introduced Thug to the world as a force of nature. It could have recharged Wayne's career, flipped the beef on its head, and rewritten the legacy of both men. But Wayne turned it down, standing firm that he didn't want other rappers writing or handing him music. In his mind, that was against the code. Respectable? Absolutely. But ironic? Even more so, especially considering his protege. Drake has built an empire with writers and collaborators shaping his biggest hits. Still, the thought of Wayne launching the Carter V with Lifestyle as the lead single is one of the biggest what-ifs in hip-hop history, and it shows just how deep this saga really ran behind the scenes. But here's the kicker. Everything Thug knew about the Wayne Birdman beef was coming directly from Birdman himself. Birdman had no interest in letting Thug see the real truth. He spun a narrative, feeding Thug the idea that Wayne was just bitter over the Carter V being delayed because he didn't have a hit single. Birdman wanted Thug to believe Wayne had simply fallen off, not that millions of dollars were being stolen from under his nose. Why? Because at the time, Birdman was actively trying to sign Thug as his next star player, and keeping the truth buried worked in his favor. But young Thug wasn't blind forever. According to what he later told police, the mask slipped around January 2015. That's when Wayne dropped Coco Freestyle, a raw record where he flat-out rapped about not being paid properly by Cash Money. Around the same time, Wayne filed that monster lawsuit, making it public for the first time that he was accusing Birdman of robbing him. That's when Thug supposedly had his epiphany. He claims he realized, man, Birdman's been stealing from Wayne this whole time. Fuck Birdman. I can't sign with him. But here's where things get suspicious. If Thug really cut ties with Birdman the moment he learned the truth, then why did he spend the next 6 months clowning Wayne, trolling him with the Carter 6 rollout, and cozying up to Birdman in public? Why did he keep riding with Birdman all the way through April 2015, even after the infamous Atlanta tour bus shooting tied to one of his own affiliates? The timeline doesn't add up, and that contradiction still makes fans question, was Thug lying in that interrogation? Or was he simply switching sides depending on who benefited him at the time? The reality is, you could never pin down Thug's loyalty. One moment he was professing love for Wayne, offering him lifestyle. The next moment he was mocking him by hijacking the Carter legacy. Behind closed doors he claimed Birdman was shady, but in public he was Birdman's protege, flaunting the relationship. That unpredictability made it impossible to know which version of Thugger was real, the devoted fan or the ruthless opportunist. But here's the crazy part. None of it seemed to matter in the long run. The trolling, the beef, the shady business deals. It all got washed away by the music. Just like Wayne had once been called the most influential rapper of his generation, people were now saying Thug was the true heir to that throne. Because while Wayne opened the door, it was Thug's sound, his creativity, and his chaos that shaped an entirely new wave of rap. Young Thug didn't just ride the wave of Atlanta trap. He reshaped it into something futuristic, something alien, and something that would end up birthing an entire generation of stars. Sure, his DNA came from Lil Wayne, but by the late 2010s, the biggest new artists weren't copying Wayne directly. They were mimicking Thug. From Lil Uzi Vert's spaced-out melodies to Travis Scott's auto-tuned chaos, from Gunna's silky flows to Lil Baby's rise to Street King, even Playboi Carti's experimental cadence, you can trace all of it back to Thugger. His fingerprints were on the culture everywhere. Think of it like a family tree. Wayne was the father, no doubt, the blueprint, the origin, but Thug became the son who evolved the style, rewired it, and turned it into something brand new. And the Uzis, Cardis, Babies, and Gunnas of the world? They're Thug's offspring, direct descendants of the weird, melodic, rule-breaking lane he carved out. What made this so important was that it allowed Thug's influence to stretch beyond just his own records. Even when he wasn't dropping classics, his sound lived on through the hottest new artists tearing up the charts. It mirrored what Wayne had done years earlier with Young Money. Just like Wayne extended his own legacy through Drake and Nicki Minaj, Thug cemented his by bringing up Lil Baby and Gunna, artists who didn't just survive in the rap game but flat out took it over. That pipeline gave Thug a safety net. Even if his music started to stumble, his protégés would keep his name alive in the streets and the industry. And that's exactly what happened. Because if we're being honest, Thug's own creative peak arguably dipped around 2017. That was the year he dropped Beautiful Thugger Girls, one of the most experimental trap albums ever made, infused with country and acoustic elements that nobody else would have dared to touch. It was ahead of its time, bold, strange, and utterly groundbreaking. But instead of being praised as a genius, the project was largely overlooked. Critics didn't know how to process it, fans weren't ready for it, and the mainstream brushed past it. That moment exposed a painful truth. While Thug was pushing boundaries into uncharted territory, the generation he had birthed was now racing past him, using his own blueprint to dominate the very industry he helped create. Beautiful Thugger Girls might not have gotten its flowers in real time, but it cracked open a lane that rappers like Post Malone, Shaboozey, and even country crossovers with Morgan Wallen are now eating off of. Thug was the first to fuse trap with that acoustic country vibe, and though it was overlooked, history shows it was a creative peak. But after that, the risks slowed, the experimentation dulled, and the innovation that made Thug magnetic began to stagnate. The reason his career still ballooned after Beautiful Thugger Girls wasn't just his own music. It was because his offspring were now running the game. Lil Baby, Gunna, even Uzi, all of them had Thug's sound baked into their DNA. Whenever they dropped, Thug's influence was front and center, and whenever they featured him, they dragged his name into the spotlight too. So when fans celebrated their success, they were indirectly celebrating Thug's legacy. But on his own, the numbers told a different story. Without the boost from his protégés, Thug's solo projects were barely moving between 15,000 and 30,000 first week. Respectable, but not superstar numbers. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, when Gunna and Baby blew up, Thug's So Much Fun skyrocketed to 100,000 in its first week. A suspicious leap that didn't match the music itself. Because if we're being honest, So Much Fun was a step backwards. It had a couple of big records, but the melodies weren't as sharp, the flows weren't as daring, and the hooks didn't stick the way classics like With That or Wyclef Jean did. It was Thug repeating himself, but somehow bigger than ever. That rise looked unstoppable, until it all collapsed. On May 9th, 2022, young Thug was arrested at his mansion in Atlanta. He wasn't alone. He was one of 28 people named in a massive RICO indictment. Prosecutors claimed YSL wasn't just young stoner life. They said it was young slime life, a violent street gang tied to drug trafficking, armed robbery, and shootings. 2 days later, Gunna, the label's other shining star, turned himself in too. By August 2022, the empire Thug built was no longer seen as music royalty. It was painted as organized crime. The charges didn't stop piling up. After the initial indictment, prosecutors hit young Thug with even more, new drug and firearm charges. Because it was a RICO case, the state S angle was brutal. They painted YSL not as a record label, but as an organized crime syndicate. Every robbery, shooting, or deal tied to YSL could be traced back to Thug as its so-called leader. If the jury bought that story, he wasn't just facing years, he was staring down decades behind bars. Once locked up, Thug and his co-defendants begged for bond again and again, hoping to fight the case from the outside. But the judges denied them every time. That's why Thug sat in jail for more than 3 years, completely absent from hip-hop while his sound kept echoing through artists like Lil Uzi Vert, Playboi Carti, Future, and more. His influence grew louder, but his voice stayed silent. Finally, the trial kicked off on November 27, 2023. By then, most of the 28 originally indicted had folded, cutting plea deals to save themselves. Only 6 defendants remained, including Yak Gotti, Lil Rod, Key, SB Qus, Nicholas, and young Thug himself. From the start, the trial was chaos. The first judge, Ural Glanville, was yanked off the case after accusations that he'd secretly met with prosecutors and a witness. His replacement, Judge Shakura Ingram, had to step down too, thanks to a personal connection with a courthouse deputy. It wasn't until Paige Reese Whitaker took over that the trial even had stability. Meanwhile, Thug's defense team kept hammering prosecutors with accusations of misconduct, saying the case was riddled with unfair tactics. Things got so tense that at one point, Thug's lead attorney, Brian Steele, refused to reveal a confidential source that he claimed proved the trial was being mishandled. The judge didn't care. Steele was slapped with contempt of court on the spot. As if things weren't chaotic enough, one of Thug's co-defendants, SB, was stabbed while locked up, adding more delays and security concerns. The trial dragged on so long it became the longest criminal trial in Georgia history, and one of Fulton County AS most expensive. Of the 28 originally indicted, only 6 made it to trial. The rest, including some of Thug's closest allies, flipped and took plea deals. That became one of the biggest threats to Thug's defense. Pleas usually require admitting certain facts, and prosecutors could use those admissions against him. The most damaging example was Gunna. In December 2022, he took an offered plea, legally pleading guilty while claiming innocence. Still, part of his deal included acknowledging that YSL was a criminal gang, not just a label. That admission gave prosecutors ammo. Even Thug S' right-hand man admits it, S a gang. Gunna walked with probation, but the shadow of his plea loomed heavy over Thug's case. Then came the music. Prosecutors argued Thug's own lyrics were confessions, not art. They pushed to show the jury bars about guns, shootings, and gang codes as evidence of crimes. In November 2023, the judge agreed to conditionally admit 17 different lyrics, usable if tied to real incidents. Thug's lawyers fought back, insisting rap is storytelling, not a diary. But the precedent was dangerous. His greatest weapon, his music, was being twisted into the prosecution's sharpest blade. Thug's lawyers argued that using rap lyrics as evidence violated free speech and would mislead jurors into confusing art with reality. But the fight didn't save him. On October 31st, 2024, Thug shocked everyone by entering a non-negotiated plea, guilty, without a sentencing deal. The judge hit him with 40 years split like this: 5 in prison, counted as time served, 15 on probation, and 20 backloaded years if he ever violates. That same day, he walked free. But freedom came with chains. His probation rules were strict. No living in Atlanta for 10 years except rare emergencies, and mandatory trips back 4 times a year to give anti-gang talks. He can't use gang language or throw signs in his music. Can't associate with known gang members or most co-defendants, except Gunna, thanks to his lawyer's request. Random drug tests, random searches, no firearms. One slip, and those 20 years could slam down on him. And the danger is real. Just months after his release in April 2025, prosecutors moved to revoke his probation, pointing to his social media activity as proof he was already breaking the rules. Thug may be out, but one wrong move could send him straight back for decades. Thug's probation came under fire fast. Prosecutors accused him of amplifying threatening posts aimed at witnesses and officials, violations that couldn't sent him straight back to prison. The court hadn't ruled yet, but the risk was real. One bad move and his freedom could vanish. Creatively, his comeback was shaky too. After 3 years behind bars, fans expected brilliance, but instead, Thug seemed obsessed with revenge. While locked up, Gunna had taken a plea and walked free, sparking endless snitch debates. When Gunna rolled out his first post-prison album in July 2023, Thug tried to sabotage it, dropping Business is Business on the same exact day. He stacked it with features: Drake, 21 Savage, Travis Scott, Future, Lil Baby, the biggest names in rap. But the plan backfired. Gunna scored one of the year's biggest hits with Fukamin, while nothing from Thug's album stuck. The world was ready to embrace Gunna again, and Thug's project felt like a desperate swing that missed. His sound hadn't evolved since 2017, and the energy that once made him untouchable wasn't there. The snitching narrative? Fans didn't care. The only one who seemed stuck on it was Thug himself. All fans wanted from Thug after prison was music. If he really wanted to bury Gunna, all he had to do was drop better songs and slip in a few slick disses. That would have made the world side with him. Instead, he spiraled into a rat obsession, blasting Gunna, calling out QC's CEO P, even accusing Kid Cudi of being a rat for testifying in the Diddy trial. 10 tweets about rats came before a single new track. The irony. This was the same man who beat impossible odds, facing decades, then walking free. Yet once he got out, the pressure only grew. His credibility took a hit when an old police interrogation leaked, showing him talking about the Wayne bus shooting tied to Pee Wee Roscoe. Fans asked, "How can you call everyone a rat when you sat down with police yourself?" Then came the leaks. Someone began releasing his jail phone calls, conversations with 21 Savage, his manager, and even Mariah the Scientist. The recordings showed Thug plotting, venting, and gossiping about the industry. And when it came to Gunna, the tapes revealed he'd been scheming to derail his comeback album, convinced his protege had betrayed him. It was a full-circle moment. Thug had entered the game trolling and beefing with rappers, and even behind bars, nothing changed. Only this time, the world wasn't laughing. It was questioning whether one of the most influential artists of his generation had let obsession and paranoia drown the very legacy he fought to protect. Thug's plan to drop Business is Business the same day as Gunna backfired badly. He thought going head-to-head would bury Gunna's comeback, but when sales came in, it wasn't what he expected. Losing to Morgan Wallen would have been embarrassing enough. Losing momentum to Gunna was worse. So in jail phone calls, Thug asked his manager if they still had the bot plug, the fake streaming boost they once used for Gunna, hoping to use it on his own release. It suddenly made sense. Back in 2017, Thug hit his creative peak, but his albums sold modestly, around 30K first week. Then in 2019, out of nowhere, So Much Fun debuted at 130K, despite being weaker musically. Fans now question whether bot plugs had helped inflate those numbers too. Thug also revealed his frustration with Kendrick Lamar. He wanted Kendrick on Business is Business, but Kendrick declined. That sparked a bitter rant where Thug claimed Kendrick would never be as big as Drake because he refused to hand out features to stars like himself, 21 Savage, or Moneybagg Yo. And the rants didn't stop there. On leaked jail calls, Thug called Gucci Mane soft, said the Migos were draining label money, and mocked Future for caring more about women than raising his kids. With every leak, more dirt surfaced, showing Thug trashing the very peers he once stood beside. Whoever leaked those calls knew exactly what they were doing. Instead of fueling his comeback, they exposed Thug as a man tearing down the whole industry from behind bars, leaving fans wondering if his downfall wasn't just legal, but self-inflicted. The leaked jail calls just kept coming. Over 2 straight weeks, new tapes surfaced daily, each one worse than the last. In them, Thug even trashed Drake, calling him stupid for how he handled Metro Boomin after his mother's passing. It painted Thug in the worst possible light. Here was a man trying to convince the public he was morally above Gunna, yet behind closed doors he was ripping apart friends and allies who stood by him during his darkest hours. Fans heard the raw truth. Thug gossiping, ranting, and revealing exactly how he saw the industry. To some, it exposed him as a chatty patty, airing every grievance while locked up. Defenders argued it was just frustration. When you're facing decades in prison, emotions run wild, and you say things you don't mean. Valid or not, the damage was done. By 2025, the contradictions became impossible to ignore. Thug had been released in late 2024, but instead of music, all we got were rat rants on Twitter and damning recordings of him talking reckless. No singles, no comeback, just leaks tearing his image apart. The public didn't care about excuses. They only saw how he acted when he thought no one was listening. It wasn't until the leaks, the interrogation audio, and the backlash all stacked up that Thug finally shifted gears. With his credibility collapsing, he stopped tweeting, stopped gossiping, and turned back to the only thing that could save him: music. After nearly a year of silence, he prepared to drop his long-awaited comeback album, UI Scooty. But the question hanging over everything was simple. Could the music be strong enough to erase the chaos? Or had young Thug's own words already destroyed the legacy he fought so hard to build? UI Scooty, named after a massive star 1,700 times wider than the sun, sounded like the perfect title for Thug's cosmic comeback, a promise of outer-worldly heat to launch him back into superstardom. But the reality, far different. Probation terms banned him from his usual content. No drugs, no guns, no gang talk. For most rappers, that'd be crippling. But Thug's gift was never his lyrics. It was the way he bent his voice, turned melodies into instruments, and created alien flows no one else could touch. His classics, Lifestyle, Wyclef Jean, With That, weren't remembered for gangster bars, but for infectious delivery. That's what fans hoped he'd bring this time. Instead, UI Scooty fell flat. The album is scattered, uninspired, with most tracks sounding like throwaways. Even the intro feels recycled. It samples a prosecutor-esque courtroom rant about Thug being a menace to society, the same speech that went viral years earlier. Back then, it symbolized the mountain he was climbing, a man fighting impossible odds. Hearing it again now, on his own album, only reminded fans of how far he's fallen. What should have been a triumphant return feels more like a hollow echo. Rather than pushing forward with new creativity, Thug seemed stuck, weighed down by the chaos of trials, probation, and paranoia. The Tasmanian devil image prosecutors painted of him lingers, but this time, the music doesn't save him. Prosecutors once painted Thug as a menace who'd threaten witnesses if granted bond. Fittingly, UI Scooty opens with that exact courtroom speech, setting the stage for how much ground he had to cover. 3 years of pain, trials, and silence. The beat then drops heavy, and Thug comes in with a dark alien growl, raw energy bursting through. At first it feels like a powerful reintroduction, but quickly, the cracks show. Instead of sharp melodies or structured flows, Thug slips into rambling, almost talking over the beat. What starts as intensity turns messy, like he isn't even rapping anymore. The energy is there, but the execution feels careless. Then comes a bizarre 8-bar stretch, where he repeats the hard R a slur aggressively, a choice so reckless it overshadows everything else. For years, Thug thrived on unpredictability, refusing to play by traditional song rules. Sometimes that chaos worked in his favor. But here, it feels sloppy, like he's not taking his comeback seriously. And then the follow-up track makes things worse. The second song, bluntly titled Yuck, lives up to its name. It's noisy, disjointed, and painfully unpolished. For an artist returning after 2.5 years, this was supposed to be a statement. Instead, it ends a stumble right out the gate, a horrible way to start what should have been the most important project of his career. One of the first big features comes from Ken Carson, and it's rough. Carson leans into his usual offbeat, unconventional flows, but here it just doesn't click. The production is flat, offering nothing to lift his style. And that's the story of much of this project. Bland beats paired with Thug's scattered energy. When he pushes, the beats can't keep up. When he dials back, he sounds half asleep. Cardi B shows up on the News. I'm not a big Cardi fan, but her verse lands. And Thug's hook has flashes of his old brilliance. The same melodic pocket he mastered on Jeffrey and Barter 6. The problem? He just repeats the title line over and over. Do you know how it feels to see her face on the news? It's catchy at first, but gets lazy fast. That raw, off-the-cuff creativity once made Thug magic. Now it just feels like he's phoning it in. Still, there are glimpses of depth. On Catch Me, I'm Falling, Thug goes introspective, recounting late-night meetings with his lawyer, breaking down in his cell, and admitting the weight of being a convicted felon. He raps about brothers flipping on him in court and even admits he couldn't lie to the judge about YSL because, as he put it, they televised the work. Lyrically, it's one of the most honest songs on the album, but the delivery kills it. Thug leans heavy on a deep, unnatural voice that sounds forced, not heartfelt. The content is powerful, but the performance feels detached, like he's speaking at the pain, not from it. And that sums up UI Scooty. Moments that should shine instead get buried under uninspired execution. Thug's delivery often feels forced, like fake crying, strained, unnatural, almost theatrical. You hear it on Miss My Dogs, one of the supposed highlights, where he apologizes to everyone from 21 Savage to Lil Baby, Future, and Drake. I respect the attempt at vulnerability, but the words don't flow naturally. Thug's never been a lyricist, and here it sounds clunky, almost like he's reading lines off a page. Kodak can balance deep lyrics with natural flow. Thug has always leaned on sound and melody, not bars. When he tries to switch roles, it just doesn't land. Worse are tracks like Fucking Told You. It's painfully repetitive, one word per bar, lifeless hooks like Yes Ma'am dragged out over bland beats. He sounds half asleep, more directionless than ever. These aren't songs with staying power, they're placeholders. The irony? In a recent interview, Thug gave fans the kind of raw honesty missing from this project. He spoke openly about betrayal, pain, and brothers like Gunna turning their backs. The interview was full of quotables that resonated. An Instagram fan even remixed clips of it into songs, and those sounded better than the actual album. Thug even tried pulling from that interview for a track called Whoop Da Do. But again, he missed the mark. Instead of raw emotion, it's lifeless, flat beat, sleepy delivery, and forgettable subject matter about spoiling his girl. The track had potential to be vibrant, but the execution left it dull. That's the theme of UI Scooty. Flashes of what could have been, drowned out by half-hearted performances. For an artist who once thrived on unpredictability and energy, the lack of passion is the loudest thing you hear. Whoop Da Do could have been the breakout track, The phrase was already a viral meme, and the beat switch gave it some modern bounce. But Thug ruins it with endless repetition, saying whoop-de-doo so many times it kills any replay value. What could have been catchy ends up wasted potential, and the tone across much of the album feels gloomy. It's strange. After beating a RICO case and walking free, you'd expect triumph. Instead, we get tracks like Sad Slime, drenched in melancholy, as if Thug can't shake the weight of it all. One true highlight comes with R.I.P. Big and Mac featuring T.I. and London on Da track. Their chemistry throws us back to Thug's golden era. Barter, 6 days, about the money type magic. The production slaps, both Thug and T.I. deliver, and for a moment it feels like the old spark is back. But aside from this, most of the project never reaches that level of effort or cohesion. That low energy was clear during my first listen. Using free Spotify, the album kept getting interrupted with random Morgan Wallen tracks. And honestly, the transitions were seamless. I'd hear a Wallen song after a Thug track and think, wow, this actually sounds livelier. That's how flat UI Scooty felt. Country fillers sounded fresher than Thug's long-awaited return. And the nail in the coffin? The Lil Baby feature. Thug once said, "Whatever Wham says, goes," and their bond always seemed unshakable. But when I saw Baby's name, I expected a standout moment. Instead, it only confirmed the decline. Not even one of his closest allies could save the project. Seeing Lil Baby's name, I already knew how it would sound. Monotonous. And that's exactly what we got. The same problem carries into Mommy with Sexy Red. It tries to be ratchet, but misses the punch that makes her usual records bang. The energy just isn't there. Then comes What Up Jesus, one of the few tracks where Thug's classic voice finally cuts through. The verses are still choppy, but at least the vocals have that old melodic spark. Not a perfect track, but compared to the rest, it feels like a highlight, simply because the energy is alive. Walk Down with 21. Savage makes the contrast even clearer. Savage glides over the beat with quotables and steady flow, reminding us why he's become one of Atlanta's strongest exports. Thug, meanwhile, drags the song down with a lazy, repetitive hook that kills replay value. Production remains the album's weakest link. Outside of the London on Day track and T.I. collab, most beats are soulless, heavy on drums, and painfully formulaic. For someone known for alien, futuristic sounds, the choice of production feels like creative autopilot. On my first listen, Spotify Shuffle started me with Pipe Down featuring Travis Scott, and right away I thought, mediocre. Not terrible, but far from memorable. And unfortunately, that first impression ended up summing up the entire album. Uninspired features, bland beats, and wasted opportunities from an artist who once thrived on pushing boundaries. Piped Down with Travis Scott ends up one of the few salvageable tracks. At first, it felt mid, but compared to the lifeless production across the album, it shines more on repeat. Metro gives it a hypnotic, Zaytoven-style beat, with synths that lift the song even when both Thug and Travis sound monotone. Their delivery is a 5-10, but the beat is a 9-10, balancing out to a solid 7. Still, it is a reminder of what could be been if Thug leaned heavier on Metro and London. 10 years in, with access to the best producers alive, there's no excuse for settling on soulless, repetitive beats. As for the album as a whole, it lands at a 4 or 5 out of 10. Not unlistenable, but painfully uninspired. After everything, 3 years locked up, a RICO case, and a second chance at freedom, fans wanted fun, futuristic alien Thug. Instead, we got an artist harping on rats and old grudges instead of celebrating survival and showing growth. It's a sad reality. Someone once seen as rap's most innovative, chaotic genius now sounds directionless, weighed down by paranoia instead of lifted by creativity. The world waited for an electrifying comeback, but UI Scooty feels more like a missed opportunity, a reminder that not every second chance turns into redemption. And maybe that's the tragic truth of young Thug in 2025. He beat the system, but he couldn't beat himself.